Hello my fellow YouTubers and welcome back to Azkriel Gaming. Today I'm going to go over a relatively unique build. Why is it unique, I hear you ask? Well, sure, it's bloody adrenal reaction and I'm sure everybody knows the story there. You just go get yourself a big smashy two-handed super sledge and hit things with it, right? Well, eventually, anyway. Even with the swing speed legendary, they're still a tad slow. Well, today we're looking at something much more suited to crowd clearing. Still in the melee wheelhouse, of course, it's the bloodied meat hook. It's savage, it looks badass, swings fast, and it's special because it counts as both melee and unarmed. That means the perks, mutations, and buffs all work on it. So let's roll the bit so that we can see how to build around it. I'd like to start this video with a little context. To achieve 3100 damage you need to be buffed up and pretty much near dead, so that kind of damage won't be sustainable, but bouncing around with enough hit points to not die every 3 seconds or so will still keep you bouncing around, say the 1400 to 2100 mark, depending on buffs. Or, of course, without buffs, you're probably sitting around the 1000 to 1800, depending on where your hit points are sitting and how much adrenaline you've got kicking in, basically. Now, with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce you to X23. She runs fast, hits hard, and has been using the meat hook since the first time I worked out that both melee and unarmed perk cards count towards this mean looking piece of steel. This build won't be for everybody, however. If you don't like or want mutations, it's definitely not for you. There are, of course, like every build, both pros and cons. Obvious pros being high damage, fast movement, you can leap tall buildings in a single bound. Well, you can jump a single story anyway. You will level fast, just running around one-shotting everything. You just level like crazy. You've got a high carry weight, 15 strength will do that to you, but most importantly, it is crazy fun to play. A few cons on the other hand is you burn through food due to the speed demon mutation. However, if you take the good doggy perk and just switch it in and out and carry some canned dog food, that perk is just so amazingly underrated. It basically cancels it out. You're going to have low hit points. You're basically always running around with half your maximum hit points, and we all know that in Fallout 76 we don't have a lot of hit points to start with, so you really do have to pay attention or you'll explode a lot. There is, however, a perk in this build that will get around a good chunk of that, but we will get to it in a little while. Not only that, is before you get good gear, you will find that you will burn a lot of stims, because like all melee builds, you have to get in the thick of it. There's no hiding out on the outskirts and just sniping things. You are in the thick of it all the time. So maybe that's just not for you. For me, I absolutely love it. I've played melee games for, okay, showing my age here, but we'll just say a long time, and I absolutely love them. They're fun, they're exciting, and yeah, just absolute ball to play. So if X23's build still sounds like it's for you, let's get into the nuts and bolts of it and see just what makes this build tick. We'll start with gear. The bloody legendary effect works just like the adrenal reaction mutation. The lower your hit points, the bigger the damage bonus. And while that's amazing in itself, the real star here is the meat hook itself and the way that it interacts with both melee and unarmed damage bonuses. This allows us to not only get great damage, but also gives us the room for tank perks as well. The unyielding armor stat works in a similar fashion, boosting all stats bar endurance up by +3, the lower our hit points get, for a total of up to +15 with 5 pieces equipped. That's a lot of strength, adding even more damage to our build. So loadout covered, let's move to mutations. For a more in-depth look at all mutations, I'll leave a link to my video in the description. However, for now, I'm just covering the ones for this build. So, for damage mutations, we've got Twisted Muscles, which gives us a 25% boost to melee damage at the cost of -50% gun accuracy. It is of course reduced to 12% with Class Freak, but that's a perk and we'll get to that in a minute. Now, losing a bit of gun accuracy really doesn't matter because, well, we punch things in the face. Talons gives us plus 25% unarmed damage and a bleed effect. The cost, -4 agility, but we reduce to -1. Adrenal reaction, I've pretty much already covered, but it increases our damage bonus the lower our health gets. The downside, -50 hit points. We lower that to 12, however. For tank, we have Grounded, which gives us plus 100 energy resist at -50% energy damage, reduced of course to 12%. Now, once again, we don't really care because we're punching things in the face. Scaly Skin gives us plus 50 damage and energy resist at -50 action points. We do, however, reduce this to 12. Utility, we get Speed Demon, plus 20% run speed and faster reloading. Our hunger and thirst are significantly higher, however. Marsupial gives us plus 20 carry weight and gives us a pretty mad jump height. -4 intelligence, of course, reduced to 1, so not really a bad trade-off if you ask me. For perks, we're starting with 2 points in Barbarian. Now this will stack out to a bonus of up to 60 physical damage resist. It scales up with strength and maxes out at about 20 strength, which is pretty easy to obtain. 3 points in Martial Artist gives us 60% lighter melee weapons and a 30% faster attack speed, so more DPS, always a good thing. Incisor gets 3 points, which lets our melee attacks ignore 75% of our target's armor, which is absolutely massive. 3 points in Blocker means we take 45% less damage from our opponent's melee attacks. Now this does cover both PvP and PvE, so this skill is absolutely mad, especially with how high melee damage is for just random mobs and actual players. Iron Fist Gladiator, Expert Gladiator and Master Gladiator each get 1 point. The reason for this is the first point in each damage skill is generally higher than the subsequent points. In this case, the first point in each gives us a 10% damage boost. Once you get good enough gear, you can switch out Blocker or Barbarian, but when you one-shot Super Mutant Primuses already, it's not a huge amount of point. Plus, being able to tank the Scorched Beast Queen like a boss just makes you feel pretty badass. Just a single point in Perception, so no Master Lock picking for this character. I found that I wasn't really bothering picking anything at high levels anyway because it pretty much becomes all about the grind, the farm, and get them legendaries. So I basically just kept a bunch of 1 point utility cards for finding things, or Butcher's Bounty and Green Thumb to net more plants and meat. Now, Butcher's Bounty also works on ticks, and you can get tick blood for them, so it's actually a pretty good perk since they patched it in patch 5. Endurance gets 6 points, 5 of which go straight into Ironclad as it nets us a pretty sizable 50 armor and 50 damage resist. If you've got your tank high enough, you could swap it out for, say, Life Giver or Solar Powered. Well, let's face it, more hit points for this build is never a bad thing, but early game, this skill is absolutely invaluable. Our last endurance point goes into Radical, and it's an integral part of this build. Not only can you get a bonus of +5 strength if you are 50% irradiated, but it gives us a good way to lock our hit points below 50% all the time using radiation, which of course then kicks in the bonuses from Bloodied, Adrenal Reaction, and of course the Unyielding, which keeps the damage nice and high for you all the time. Charisma gets 4 points. Now, early game when your gear isn't that great and you're playing solo, Lone Wanderer will reduce all incoming damage by 20%. But of course it won't work when you're grouped. Now, for grouped play, Strange in Numbers is beautiful. At just 1 point, it will increase the benefits of your mutations by 25% if your teammates are also mutated. Now, that's a pretty important point. If they're not, it doesn't work. Now, more damage and tanked while grouped is always good, and it makes up a good chunk for losing the Lone Wanderer perk. The other 3 points, if you're all about the damage of course, go into Party Girl or Boy. Now, alcohol effects are short, 3 minutes in fact in most cases, but tripling the bonus of these effects can be huge. A mere beer suddenly gives +3 strength instead of 1, and if you get hold of some whiskey, holy cow, that bad boy will boost out 6 strength, and that's crazy. 4 points in Charisma also still leaves you a little bit of utility. Hard Bargain and Travel Agent, for example, will keep your daily vendor run fast and profitable. The more caps you get per item, the less time you need to spend on the farm, so to speak, and reducing your travel costs just keeps caps in your pocket. Intelligence is 8 points, so no room for explosive weapon builds here, but it's melee, so it doesn't really matter. 8 points is also enough to switch around any crafting perks that you may need at any given time. 5 points goes into Makeshift Warrior. Not only does it let you build tier 5 melee weapons, but it slows down weapon degradation by a decent 50%. You really will notice that your repair bills drop if you keep this equipped at all times. First Aid gets 3 points for a pretty decent 45% bonus to stim packs. It seems a little counterintuitive, but it makes, say, diluted stim packs pretty badass for this build, and they weigh less, so less to carry. Not to mention it also affects healing salves, so if you're a bit hard up on healing, this will really help you out. Not to mention you just use less stims in general, as it's based on percentage, which means you heal a larger amount faster, which also means you have to stack less stims to stay alive. 11 points in agility plus the unyielding bonus gives us a nice deep action point pool. Then stacking up the ultralight AP regen with a 45% increase from the action boy or girl perk, coupled with the 20% from Lone Wanderer if you're still solo, and of course Nerd Rage if you're crazy and like living life on the edge, means that we can sprint, VATS teleport, and basically just face melt things at breakneck speeds. 3 points in evasive gives us up to 45 damage and energy resist, which when you combine with the unyielding and permanently being under 50% health, it's always maxed out. Born Survivor is mostly a personal preference. Some may wish to dump First Aid and this in favour of Nerd Rage for a bit of extra damage. Personally, I found the risk of getting dead was just too high to run this build on a permanent basis, especially before I got good gear, so I opted to make myself damn near immortal with just a single point kicking it in at 20%. Of course 2 points makes it 30%, which honestly we want to keep our hit points low, so 1 point is all you were ever going to need, like ever, for any build. It does also leave me free to just worry about face melting and having fun, as I only need to keep an eye on my radiation levels. White Knight for 3 points is basically the same deal as Makeshift Warrior. It's all about quality of life and lowering our repair costs. Not only does it slow down the degradation by 60%, which did used to be 90% until it got nerfed, because it was ridiculously overpowered, but it makes our repairs significantly cheaper. So instead of blowing through, say, 4 ballistic fiber pretty much every time you want to repair something, it's only going to set you back 1, which is a massive difference. The last point is interchangeable. We can take something like Adrenaline, which is what I generally stick with, as it gives 36% bonus the more things we mow down, which makes it absolutely amazing for crowd control. Gunfu, on the other hand, gives us some pretty good VATS hopping, but if you've got friendlies nearby, it can be a right pain in the backside, and especially for things like the Queen fight. It seems to just always pick up that big badass standing there in the power armor with heavy weapon, and that's the last person you probably want to be hitting. Luck gets 11 points, so combined with the unyielding set bonus stats, our crit meter feels insanely fast. Not to mention, there are some really good perks in this tree. For example, our 3 points in Bloody Mess increase all of our damage by 15%, and as such, it should be a staple in every character build. Serendipity gets 3 points and lands us a 45% chance to avoid damage while we're under 30% hit points, so this one's pretty huge for this build as we're on low hit points a lot. Class Freak gets 3 points and it fixes the mess that would be our stats thanks to our mutations by a pretty decent margin, 75% in fact, so 50% becomes 12% and 4 becomes 1, which is far more manageable. 2 points in Starch Genes is the glue that holds this entire build together. Not only are we immune to gaining a mutation that may negatively impact our build, yeah, I'm looking at you, Egghead, but it stops us having to worry about Radaway stripping us of a mutation crucial to the build. Perks finish, there are a range of ways to push your damage even higher. Glowing Meat Steak is a 10% damage bonus. Stingwing Fillets and Deathclaw Steaks are both +2 strength. Molerat Chunks or Mutated Fern Tea, if you're desperate, are both +1 strength. There's also a pretty extensive list of chems, the plans for which can be found at the Enclave's Bunker Medical Terminal. They give a wide range of effects from just straight stat boosts, damage boosts, even some damage prevention. So if you're really keen on playing that Juicer Junkie kind of character class, you can also add Biocom Mesh to your chest armor and take Chem Fiend from the Endurance tree, and they will both extend the effects of your chems considerably. Just be mindful of the addiction drawbacks. That said, of course, about the only time I ever actually bothered boosting up my damage these days is pretty much just for the Queen fight. Any other time, I'm already one-shotting a Primus, so there isn't a big point, really. So that pretty much sums up X23's build. I have 4 other different characters built at this stage, though they're not complete. They include a heavy weapons, a straight melee power armor tank kind of character, and a sniper, but this by far is the most fun to play. Once I'm happy with my other characters, I might upload their builds too, so if you're interested, let me know in the comments, and if I get enough interest, I'll put together another detailed character build just like this one. As always, thanks for watching. If you found it helpful, don't forget to smash that like button. It really does help the channel get out there. Of course, if you really want to help the channel grow, show your friends, show your mum, hell, show your dog. It all helps the channel grow, which means I get to keep doing this and you get more videos to watch. My name's Azkriel and I will catch you all next time.